say hello if you're here. I know this takes a little while for you to kind of catch up with this. So we have a very special guest today. We have Alan Beak. You guys might know him from the channel. He came in, he did a cut with Rory, and he's just one of the best in the business. I've got him waiting down here on Skype. So any questions that you have about sort of haircuts during lockdown, quarantine, any haircuts about when you go back to your barber, or just like any sort of hair related questions. I have some products here too, so if there's anything I can kind of jump in on, then we can do that. But I also have some questions that you guys had from before, so I'll pull up as many as possible. So do tell me that you're hearing this, please, because I know that it does take a little bit of time. Okay, Alan is getting set here. Alan, that is you in with me.
Hello.
Hi, how are
Hi.
you?
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Thank you
How are
for
you doing?
joining me.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I've been excited to have you on. I was saying to the guys on like Instagram and on YouTube that you are one of the best in the business. So you're someone that can definitely answer their questions.
Well, I hope so. I think we're in a time where even though people aren't going out much, everyone still wants to look good. Everyone still wants to feel good. So actually being able to ask some questions and get some answers from me, I'm hoping that we can elevate some moods and make people look good, feel good.
Absolutely. I think if there's any little things that you can do at home to make yourself feel better, then it's definitely something you should be doing. I know that some people are shaving their hair, which is not the best for barbers. I'm most definitely growing mine out. So yeah, so I'm gonna stick with it. Alan, there was a question that we had, which I thought was quite sort of pertinent to now, and it was about clipper grades and clipper guards. So when someone goes in to see their barber, they'll quite often have clippers that have attachments that go on. For anyone that's got like at home clippers with the dials, is it the same sort of thing, just for kind of neating up the back and sides?
Same thing. So what we tend to do is we have a graduation on the sides. Now it just gives us kind of a softer, cleaner look throughout the sides. Not a lot of people tend to style the sides of the hair. Obviously, you do. You've grown your hair out, and you've actually got some hair that you can manipulate and create some movement and some texture. Now, if you were having your hair shaved on the sides using the clippers, the guards would then dictate the length. So if you had a number one back and sides, each one of the numbers corresponds to what it is eighths of an inch. So number one is 1/8 of an inch, and number four is 4/8 of an inch or half an inch. So obviously, depending on the number, would dictate the length that you have on the sides. And number one is relatively short. Obviously, a zero is practically bald, and number four is just half an inch.
Okay. So when someone is doing that, I mean, I again, guys, if you can hold off and not cut your hair, then hold off. But if someone was to do it, Alan, would they sort of start off on a slightly longer one and then come down? What would be your sort of top tip for that?
If someone was completely compelled to shave their own hair, which I would advise against massively, then it's always good to have it longer on the top and then shorter on the sides. It gives it some shape. You're not just with this. Obviously, men have round heads,
Mhm.
and what we want to do is just try and create something that's a little bit squarer. So if you have it shorter on the sides and a little bit longer on the top, then obviously you're going to create a squarer shape rather than this uniform round fuzz tennis ball kind of look.
Mhm.
Now, if you were compelled to do it, then keeping one length all the way through is going to be a lot easier. Then to start going down your grades and getting shorter and shorter towards the bottom, that's where we get a little bit trickier. And it takes a couple of mirrors, maybe some help from your partner or the dog. The dog's probably going to do a better job because it is
Yeah.
difficult. I wouldn't cut my own hair. That's how difficult it is.
Yeah, I'm definitely not touching mine. I mean, you can see Ellen at the moment. It is fairly long, but I think I've kind of almost passed through that awkward stage, and it seems to be kind of working now. Um, I am hearing that my volume isn't very loud, so I'm just gonna have a little play with this, guys. But you can all keep me right and tell me if that's any better. Here we go. I have a question here from Tom. I'm going to add that in. So, Alan, Tom is asking, do you think it's better to fade down or fade up?
Now that completely depends. I think Tom sounds like a barber to me
Okay.
to start with, because
Do
that's
you know Tom?
no, no. Oh,
Okay.
I might know his second name, but just off the name Tom, no. But now it completely depends on where your experience derives from, really. So if you was an Afro-Caribbean barber, then you would tend to ascend in your graduation. So you would start lower, you'd be really, really short, and then you'd work your way up. Now, of European derivative, you would probably start higher and descend through your graduation. Whichever way you do it is completely up to you. As long as you get that end result, it doesn't really matter whether you work up or whether you work down.
Okay. And when you say that, because I know that different barbers sort of different techniques, there's not a right or a wrong way, is there?
No.
It's all about kind of what works best for that certain haircut.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like people do have different head shapes and the hair texture is different on the side. Some people have really, really difficult hair to fade, and some people have easy hair to fade.
Mm.
And it's all dependent on the client, whether I work up or work down. And sometimes I'll start in the middle, do a little bit up, and then go down. It just depends on the client and the texture and like the growth pattern on the sides.
Okay,
But there
so
is no right or wrong way. You can do it either way at all.
okay, that is good to know. I know that when I did my very short barber training, and I used to get really like I go by the book on things, and when I was thinking I was doing it wrong or right, it kind of stopped me from doing what I was doing. Someone here is asking Alan about this is Kiss Roland. I'm going to add you on there. He'd like to ask for some tips on curly hair and how to style it. So, Alan, firstly, how does like curly hair differ in terms of sort of straight hair in terms of styling?
So I think straight hair, what it's very, very, it's not as forgiving as curly hair. Curly hair is all about organizing it into a position that complements your face shape and putting it into a shape. Whereas with straight hair, sometimes it's a lot more difficult to manage and to handle,
Hmm.
and it takes a little bit more manipulation and a little bit more styling. Curly hair is by far the easiest hair to cut and to fade and to style. I love it. I think the more natural, the better with curly hair. And all you're trying to do is like we have some kids that come in and some adults as well who always say, I like to straighten my hair out. And I always think, why? You've got the most beautiful textured hair. What you should be trying to do is enhancing the texture of the hair and enhancing the curls. So if somebody has wavy hair, we'll enhance it so it's more wavy. And someone has curly hair, we'll enhance it so it's more curly. So if you wanted to create some really, really nice strong curls, just by adding a little bit of product, a water-based matte clay in wet hair when it has been dried, and allowing it to dry naturally through like your first hour of the day, just a walk around the block, or just using a diffuser, by allowing it to dry as natural and as slow as possible, you're going to create this kind of seize up with the curls, and you have a lot more of a natural and a lot more of an enhanced curl. So in terms of styling, you could use sea salt spray and then blow dry with a diffuser, which is just a very, very slow and hot environment rather than directing a lot of airflow with a nozzle, say. So, or you could just use any kind of dressing product, but use it in damp hair, towel dried hair, then just allow it to dry naturally. When it's completely dry, then you can just kind of break it up and organize it into position.
Okay, it's I'm always really jealous of people with curly hair. I think it's beautiful, and it's as you say, you know, if someone has naturally curly or sort of wavy hair to work with that, I think is great. Is it more sort of forgiving to cut, like with all those with all that sort of movement and texture? Can you cover up a bad cut?
A million percent. Like,
Yeah.
you know full well that if you had twins who had the exact same look, everything about them, if one came in and had straight hair and one came in at curly hair, I know full well that the guy with curly hair would take me half the time to cut, but I would
Mm,
probably spend twice as long taking pictures of him.
yeah. Definitely. I know that again in the very short training that I did, a guy with afro hair came in and I was absolutely bricking it to see this type of
Yeah,
hair.
terrible.
And actually when I did a few, I say a few, quite a few mistakes into it, I did notice that it could be covered up quite well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that. And we have a question here, which maybe is maybe quite one for me. And this is from John Appledon, and he says, best shampoo ingredients for fine and thin hair. I have nice hair right now. I just want to prevent any diffuse thinning. I hear dimethicone is bad. Alan, do you have any sort of top tips for sort of fine and thinning hair? Any sort of key products that you use? I know I have some favorites that I can sort of jump in on.
Yeah. Okay. So when you have fine hair, if you're going to use something that's a nourishing shampoo or a conditioner, what it's going to do is it's going to close all these little scales that are around your hair. So all these little scales are called your cuticle. And what we want to do is we want to open up the cuticle, which is temporarily going to make your hair thicker and fuller. So things that are acidic, so anything that's lemon juice, lime juice, grapefruit juice, a cleansing shampoo that is see-through in color rather than the milky look, that's going to open up the cuticle because we're adding an acidity to the hair. Now, anything that's milky in color means that there's oil present and it's a lot more alkaline, which is going to flatten the cuticle and make your hair even like really, really fine, true to form, and a lot sleeker and straighter. That's why a lot of women use conditioner when they have straight hair, because it closes the cuticle, whereas we want to keep it open. We want our hair thick and vibrant and full. So anything that's like tea tree or anything that's lemon juice or grapefruit juice.
I haven't heard that, so that's great. I have really super fine hair, and through the sort of the 7 years of being on YouTube, I've tried lots of different products and lots of different things. And one thing, I mean, there's key sort of brands that I always go back to. Kevin Murphy have some great products here, not at all affiliated or paid to say, I should say that. But these ones are really great, and I find that actually it cleans the hair without weighing it down. With fine hair, I sometimes find that if you like over cleanse it, then it's going to drop. So actually keeping a bit of that dirt and grit. Also, like Nioxin, a brand which I know and love, it's more sort of, it's cosmetic in that it sort of plumps it. So anything that does that. Talking of the sort of cuticle, so the outer layer of the hair, a top tip I would always say, and it's when you're washing your hair and also when you're blow drying it, is to always finish on cold, because that shuts the cuticle and it plumps it, and it's going to put your hair into a state to then style it. If you style your hair with hot hair, when it dries, it's going to drop.
Exactly. So it's like, you have to remember as well, like a lot of the products that we use now in comparison to 10 years ago are water-based products. And when the cuticle is wide open, it will absorb and take in the water from a product, because hair has properties where it's hygroscopic, which means it attracts water. It's very, very porous. So if the cuticle is wide open and you add a water-based product, and especially if your hair is very, very hot, then what it's going to do is it's going to take it in and it's going to drop. So what we do is we manipulate the hair with a hairdryer, get it into the position and style that we want it. Then we cool it down, because, and what you got to remember is hair's very plastic-like. So if we get it very, very hot and put it into a position, nice big fringe, really, really high, and then put a product in when it's hot, then it's just going to absorb it, take in that water and return to its natural state. So we use the cold shot to harden and set the hair.
I think there's so much to be said for using heat, and a lot of guys at home quite often ask from me, and I'm sure they ask you too, you can tell me, about sort of no heat hairstyles. And I think it is possible, but I think there's so much to be said for hair dryers and hairdryer technique and what you can do with it.
You can create an amazing look with no hairdryer. But what we have to do more than anything is make sure that it's moisture free. There has to be no water in there. So if you don't want to use a hairdryer, then you've got to allow your hair to dry naturally over the course of the day. Like we have a product called Elemental. And like you said before, like I'm not paid to say any products, and I have my own product range, but I will always still recommend other people in the industry and other brands. And I'll always give someone a domestic recommendation as well. So if we have a product called Elemental, and if I was to put that in my hair after washing it in the morning and allow it to dry naturally, by the time, 2 hours later, all the moisture's gone and I have so much texture and volume in my hair, because over time it's expanded and it's kind of like given this like full volume look. And as long as you've got the time at the moment you do, I think with a hairdryer though, it just takes away that element of time. We can do it super quick, it's super effective, and we can create more manipulation with heat.
Absolutely. And great hair you've got there, Alan. Just
I know,
pushing that
thank you.
all up.
I actually
Lots
did.
of texture.
I did do my hair this morning, actually. No product. All I did was get out of the shower and I blow dried it, and that was it.
There you go. You're blessed. Very
Done.
good hair. And a
Thank you.
lot of time went into this hair today. I'm actually really enjoying it being long, so I've just been experimenting with it. We have a question here from Matthew, and this is another sort of maintenance question. These sort of questions are perfect for now.
Yeah.
He's saying, how do you maintain sideburns between haircuts? They get so thick and stick out. So how to maintain sideburns?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if you have a set of clippers, the best thing to do is just, I mean, I have a clipper here as my little prop, just as a tiny little bit of a demonstration.
Yeah.
What you want to do is kind of put it on a higher setting. If you have clipper guards, start with a very high guard and then work your way down through the sideburn and get shorter as you go to the bottom. And what you want to do, obviously, is put the clippers on, and you want to just make sure that you can see directly in the mirror and just literally flick out the edges until you can just groom them, so then they taper down ever so slightly. If you don't have clippers and all you have is scissors, what you want to do is, if you haven't got a comb, use a fork, use whatever you need to, and all you want to do is keep the comb on the skin and push it until the sideburn is literally in the comb. Yeah. And then all you need to do is just cut up the comb using the comb as a guard and just trim them down ever so slightly. You don't need to cut on the skin because they'll be too short. So by just literally allowing the hair to protrude through the comb like so, and then just look in the mirror and just cut up the comb just to reduce the length down a little bit.
Okay. And is there a sort of perfect length for the hair which kind of comes over the years to meet the sideburns? My sort of facial hair is patchy at best and it doesn't really grow that thick and full. But I often have these sort of bits, that'll sit. At the moment, I'm tucking them behind my ears and I'm very happy with it. But I know a lot of guys at the moment will have that too. Is there a perfect length to be cutting that?
I think it'd be extremely difficult to do on your own.
Yeah.
And you're not physically looking. I mean, I would struggle to do it on my own. I'd have 2 mirrors set up so I could see exactly in front of me and just to the side. And I think if you start delving into the actual side of your hair rather than your sideburns, just make sure that there's an absolute disconnection from the top to the sideburn itself. Because if you go into the hair, that's new realms of home haircut disasters.
Yeah, there's a lot that can go wrong, isn't there?
Extremely. And you know what a lot of people have done is they've messaged me and said, I'm going to cut my own hair, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And this is the phrase that I've heard quite a lot. It looks easy. And I always say to them, no, I just make it look easy. Like, we as barbers, we're trained professionals. We make it look easy. I wouldn't cut my own hair. Do what Bob's done and just style it out.
Yeah,
just
style it out.
Tools and style it out.
I have a lot of respect for barbers because it isn't easy. I am, again, going back to that training, I went in thinking, I can do this. And I just know how hard it was. So if you can wait for your barber. The other thing is, barbers are running a business. So be loyal to your barber, stick with them, go back to see them when this is done. I think one of the most positive things about this in terms of your hair is that you're going to have this great canvas of hair for a barber to go into. If you've been thinking about having a different style, you want to try something new, then this is the time to do it. Just stick it out for a little bit.
Absolutely, 1,000,000%.
We've got a question from Asaro, and he's asking, or she's asking, how to find a good barber.
Instagram,
okay.
Instagram, because if we was to drive past the barbershop and we see all these pictures in the window, we don't know that the people inside are responsible for those pictures. Yeah. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of my images that are in barbershops all over the world now, and which is obviously, it's taking my work and passing it off as their own, which, to be fair, I used to get really upset about, but I'm not bothered now, because at the end of the day, I should be flattered that people like my images and use them. So what I would do is, if you was to go onto somebody's Instagram, that's their modern day lookbook. That's their work. You can go in, you can have a look at how detailed they are, how precise, how how accurate their work is and what their styling's like. And it's an extension of somebody's personality, their Instagram. So you can kind of work out a lot from somebody's Instagram just by having a look through it. And most importantly, you can see what their work is like before you actually sit in their chair.
Yeah. Is it not a bit dangerous though, Alan, in that looking at Instagram and looking at some of the barbers' work, it can all look very impressive, but I know the power of Photoshop, and you can blend stuff, you can sort of blur it. So having a really heavy weight line, someone can put that image into a Facetune or into a Photoshop and they can get rid of that.
The thing is with the people that, I mean, there are quite a strong percentage of barbers that do Photoshop their work.
Yeah.
Now, the ones that do Photoshop, luckily enough, are the ones that aren't focusing on making their haircuts look better. They're making the overall image look better. So I know a lot of barbers that will, if they was to put like a surgical line through the side or do a hard parting, they might edit the line so it looks sharper and neater. Now, every single person that I know who edits their work in the industry right now, they're all only enhancing what I know is already a good haircut.
Okay.
And there is some people out there that do edit all their work, but Instagram, it's not always just about the haircut. It's about the overall image. So if you were kind of looking at someone's work thinking, oh, I don't know, it's photoshopped, then maybe ask me or ask you or ask somebody else that's actually got a little bit of experience just for their opinion on what they think their work would be like. And the best thing for people to do is to make sure that they're aware of how to describe what they want. Taking a picture, make sure that the picture that you've got is very, very similar to like your hair type, texture, color, everything. Don't pick David Beckham, you know, that haircut if you look like Wurzel Gummidge, you know. Make sure that it's relative to you and looks similar to you and your hair type.
Exactly. Actually, I've got your Instagram here, Alan. I'm going to see if I can share this screen. This could go awfully wrong. But here we go. Let's try this. Yes, this is Alan's Instagram right here. So if you are looking in the description of this video, I've got Alan's Instagram. It's just Alan_Beak. But Alan's got some great things on here. So that will help you out. Some absolutely amazing styles. And Alan, you're okay with people contacting you and asking things?
A million percent. A million percent.
Okay. That's really helpful. Also, a little push to my pages. I now have the men's hairstyle galleries. So this can sort of give you a little bit of help. And Alan's work is on here. I can show you this. When Alan cut Rory's hair, it was a style that I absolutely loved. You can see here. So on manforhimself.com, and then this is one of Alan's. So you can see this will tell you how you can achieve it at home and sort of what to cut. And Alan, I'm going to get some more of your work on here if that's okay, because that would be that would be amazing. So I have a question here, Alan, which actually is more about sort of barber training and sort of getting into the business. And that is from, apologies, I'm going to get your name wrong here, Quartica Favier, one of the best names in the business there. He or she says, how do I start a hairdressing/barbering career right after the course or the training that they're doing? Like, where do they start from? So how do they get to where you are?
Okay, so what a lot of people have done is they've looked at our industry and think, do you know what? It looks like something I want to do that. I want to stand in a shop and I want to be around like-minded people. Yeah. And I like the look of the industry. Now, what happens is people are a bit afraid to put in that time where you don't earn a lot. When you start at the rock bottom of barbering and the hair industry, it's very, very difficult. But you just got to be ultra persistent and very, very hard working and work your way through. So it's going to take a large number of haircuts, thousands of haircuts for you to get to a decent level. And once you're at that level and you've got that experience, that's when you can start promoting yourself on social media, getting your work out there, tagging people in that you want to see, influential people, and applying for different jobs. Now, when you apply for a job, like if anyone was to come for a job at our shop, the first thing that I would ask them is, do you have any examples of your work, or would you be willing to do a trades test? Never in my life have I ever asked someone for a qualification. Yeah. Qualification great because obviously you get quite a lot of experience and you get to know a lot more of the theoretical side behind cutting hair. And I think you have a deeper connection to cutting hair when you know more about the science behind it. The fact that hair is made up of 3 components, you know, cuticle, the cortex, and the medulla, and understanding what each aspect of that does. So once you leave your training, the best thing you can do is to constantly practice. You don't practice until you get something right. You practice until you never get it wrong. So it's just about making sure that your clientele is constantly growing, making sure that your education continues, and just getting as much experience as you can.
Do you think it's better for someone to go into a barber shop and work as an apprentice and work their way up, or to do a sort of training camp or a sort of training course? Do you have like a preference with that?
Yeah, 1,000,000% for you to go into a salon and work as an apprentice and work your way up. Because I think what everybody's end goal is to own a shop, okay, at least one. Like, what's your end goal when you first start cutting hair? Well, I want to own my own shop. I want to call it this. I want it to be here. I want it to look like that. Now, if you haven't done all those jobs, then you're not going to obtain what we'd call like a mastery level, because you don't know every single job in that shop. Now, my first day, all I did was sweep up an entire empty shop. The lads who I used to work for got me in the shop and said, sweep up.
Yeah.
An hour later on, there wasn't a hair in that shop because I'd swept everywhere. And there we go. That was job one. Get good at sweeping hair. Get good at cleaning up. And, you know, every single day I can guarantee that I'll do a job in that shop that I used to do, you know, 22 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's about making sure that you know the ins and outs of the entire business. So I think it's great to start at that.
I think it's really important in any sort of job to have an understanding of everything that's going on. And actually, when you first start out in a job, it's the most important thing. I know from like sort of TV background that I had, you might have a degree, you might have a qualification, but actually you'll end up doing some things that you think you're maybe better than. I know that someone that came to work with me said they wouldn't do any cleaning. So that was that was a big no. There's a question here, Alan, about which is a question I get asked quite a lot actually, and they're asking about salon or barbers for long hair. So like a hairdresser or a barber.
Okay, so it's a really good question actually. As the industry has evolved over the past, say, 10 years, what we've been faced with is men having a lot longer hair and us as barbers having to kind of teach ourselves or get education on how to deal with longer hair. And the reason why I went into ladies hairdressing about 10 years ago, I've been cutting for 13 years. About 3 or 4 years into my career, I decided to study ladies hairdressing, and it was because what I found was a lot of men will go into a barbershop to have their clipper work done and then go into a ladies hairdressers to have the top done and styled. And I wanted to become that hybrid where I could do any client that walked through the door, whether they were male, female, you know, from any race, and just anyone that came through the door, I wanted to be able to cut. So over the years, and I don't just speak for me, I speak for the barbering industry full stop, a lot of men now have had to do ladies hairdressing and work with longer hair. So that's obviously different sectioning patterns and different layering techniques, different shape implementation. And all of this has been so important and imperative to the industry's growth. And a lot of guys, a lot of females have all combined together their knowledge now. So even hairdressers, even salons are getting good at doing their clipper work because they've had to. It's not just men are not just our demographic anymore, men and women now, and it's the same in salons.
Absolutely. And I think there's a bit there's quite often, I think, with sort of this whole barber versus hairdresser thing of something being gender, of if you are or you want a sort of fade or something which is generally more sort of male, then you would go to a barber shop and vice versa. But actually, you know, as you say, having experience learning it as a hairdresser and all those skills, it actually makes you better at what you're doing because you can do absolutely everything.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that you learn in hairdressing is shape. Okay, so you would automatically assume round is a feminine shape and square being a masculine shape. Now I've got a number of female clients that come in who have like real strong square haircuts for that real androgynous kind of look, like crossover between male and female. And then we have blokes that come in who want really, really round layers in their hair because they like the way it's easier to tie up and things like that. So there's so much crossover now. It literally is just hair. It doesn't matter what gender you are when you sat in the chair. Hair is hair. It just depends on what shape and how much we're taking off, whether we're clipping or whether we're just cutting short. So if you find a barber that you know full well has experience with longer hair, then I would say barber. If your barber isn't, and they're more of a clipper barber, more of a shaving kind of barber, then I would go to a salon.
Okay, top tips there. Loads of questions coming in, Alan. This is me frantically trying to keep up on top of these. Thank you, everyone. I am driving this ship, sailing this ship. We have got a question. Lots of people I'm answering other people's questions, which is actually really helpful. Here we go. There's a question about product here, and this comes from Blaziken12, the legend. Great name. Why are there products which leave bits in your hair, even when fully emulsified?
So what tends to have happened there, if it's on the surface, because if it's a water-based product, then the lid's been left off and it's oxidized. And when it oxidizes, it just goes harder, which means it leaves a skin on the top. Now, we do find that happens with quite a lot of products. Now, if it's internally inside the pot and it's just not been mixed together properly, I would imagine that would be more of a domestic or a supermarket product that is obviously a lot cheaper. The production of that would just be so cheap. And what you do find is some of the products have organic ingredients and they are not made in a temperature controlled environment, or they've been stored in an environment that was either too hot or too cold. Now, if hair products become too hot, some of them do, even though it's not an oil-based product, they still do have oil-like products in there, like castor oil or beeswax. Now, if it gets really, really hot, it will separate. So it's almost like curdling kind of thing. So we find that we found that actually with the development of one of our products, if it was a certain age, the actual oils that were inside it started to kind of separate from the rest of the product. They're emulsified when they're made and obviously blended together perfectly, but over time the oils do gather together and it leaves little bits.
Yeah, and products do have a sort of a use by date. You'll see on the bottom of a product, these are kind of just sort of standard, but you'll see, especially on sort of drugstore products, they've got a little picture underneath that will have like a 12 or a 24 or an 18. That, I don't know if you can see that. That basically just says how many months once you first open it, it will keep. But to be honest, like I've had products that I've gone over that and they generally are still stable. But there are some products which, as Alan says, will go a bit oily or not quite right. And you can kind of mix them back in, or there's some which should just be binned. I actually found a product recently which had mold in it and it was new. So that was disgusting.
There's a product that we have called Essential and water-based matte clay. And what I'd done is I had left it not completely airtight and I'd not used it. It was at home. I don't tend to style my hair at home. I would tend to blow dry it at home. And then when I get to work, my hair is nice and cool. I'd had my head out the window, making sure it was cold. And then I'd style my hair at the shop. And I'd lifted off the lid. I'd probably 2 or 3 weeks where it wasn't completely sealed. And I could see that it was a little bit harder on top. And it had discolored it, gone a little bit darker. Now, I like the product, the integrity that it is. So I just added a tiny little bit of water, got the back of a spoon, and just mixed it up. And now it's my favorite product because I've just added it a little bit more water and mixed it up and blended it back up, and it's nice and soft again.
Making do with what you have.
Exactly.
There's a question here. I've just lost it, so apologies. I'm going to try and find it now, but I can tell you what it was. Someone was asking if you can tell if someone in your chair isn't happy with the haircut. I'm sure they don't get that with you because you do some great work, but can you tell if someone isn't happy? Here we go, I found it. It comes from Ashish Gurang. Can you tell if a customer is not happy with a haircut, even if they say yes, that they are happy?
when you have worked in the barbering industry and let's say a customer service or a service providing industry for 20 plus years, you get incredibly good at being telepathic and just looking at people's body language. Now, if somebody doesn't like something, you can automatically tell. People wear their heart on a sleeve, and when they're sat staring at themselves in a mirror, you can tend to look at their eyes, and if their eyes are jotting backwards and forwards and they're looking at something and don't like it, that's obviously going to prompt the... I mean, I get this look quite a lot because when I blow dry hair, like I mentioned earlier on, if you blow dry hair, let's say, for example, let's do a numbers game. If someone said to me, I want my quiff, I want it 4 inches high, I'd say exactly 4 inches, exactly 4 inches. So when I do the blow dry, I would blow dry it 5, maybe 6 inches high. And that's when I tend to get the look. People look at me and say, well, as if look at me, and I know for well internally, they're saying, whoa, that's a bit much. Yeah. But whenever we blow dry, we must really, really over exaggerate it, because as soon as you add a water-based product, your hair will dampen down and fall a little bit. But what we want to do is we want it to fall down rather than put too much product on and style it up. So I over exaggerate all of my blow dries, and some, especially with curly hair, I will use a diffuser, I will scrunch the hair and get it all big and huge. And then that's when people look at me as if to say, that's too much. And that's when I can read the body language, and I will just apprehend them and say, don't worry, it's not the end look, it's just how I'm blow drying it. But yes, you can always tell when somebody's a bit confused or unhappy, definitely.
It's better for it to be big though than it to be too short. I have had one. I'm lucky actually. I've only had one awful haircut in my time, and you guys might remember this from a video I did. And it was the worst. And actually, when the hair's been cut, you can't put it back on. But if the hair's just a little too big, then it's actually fine, isn't it?
Yeah, you can always take more off. You can't put any back on.
Exactly. We've got a question here from Georgian King, who's asking, what's the best hairstyle for a receding hairline?
Okay, so the best thing, I mean, it depends on how bad it is and how much you want to hide it. So something that was left really, really square across the front. Now, your hair tends to grow in a clockwise formation from the crown. So a lot of people, I would say 95% of men's hair go from the left to the right. Now, I actually have quite a bad receding hairline, but you would never know because I hide it so well. So by making sure that we maintain length in the corners of our hair, what we can do is when we bring it over, we're covering it and we're giving the illusion of this really square hairline just by extending or retaining length at the front. So we just kind of triangulate these little corners and make sure that we extend the length and just leave it a little bit longer towards the front, which allows us then to cover that area.
I mean, your hair looks great. Have you always had a sort of higher hair?
So okay, I mean, you can see obviously as I go right up, I actually have quite a receding hairline, but the way that I style my hair covers it up nice and easy.
Yeah, your hair looks great. That's a top tip. Everyone should be doing that. I know that's a concern for a lot of guys, having a sort of receding hairline. But if you can do that, then that's exactly what you'd want.
I think what we do as barbers is we're not just cutting hair. You become like a forehead receding hairline covering specialist.
Yeah. You're like man's best friend.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got a question here from Bob J.I. They're asking, should I shave my baby hairs on my hairline or shall I let it grow out? This is actually something that I often wonder too, so I'm keen to hear what you think.
It depends on how much it bothers you. It literally is down to how much it bothers you. I personally would say no, just to leave it. And if you was going to have someone do it, have a professional do it. Because if you was to go too far into the hairline, as soon as that starts to grow back, there's a very, very fine line between that baby hair, that very, very soft, downy hair, and your actual, like, normal, ordinary growing hair. Now, if you was to accidentally go into that, that's going to take, weeks, maybe months for actually to it looking even and looking normal again. So if you wanted that gone, go to a barber and say, can you just please do not go into my hairline but just tidy up the very, very thin, fine hair that's around, obviously, like the temple area and around the sideburns,
rather than taking it right up.
rather than taking it off.
Unrelated, but Daryl Desmond says, I'm a massive fan, Alan. You have a fan here, Alan. Very good. Johnny is asking a question which I have been asked a lot, especially on Instagram. I'm not sick of it, but I'm kind of sick of it. Johnny's asking, what's your opinion on the Peaky Blinders Arthur Shelby haircut?
So first of all, as I would say, thank you to Daryl. Daryl, you're a star. I really appreciate it. I know him, so that's why he's...
Oh, do you? Okay.
I know him. He's a very good friend and a business partner, so...
You've got a couple of plants in here. I should get some people to say that they like me.
Yeah. Okay, so the Arthur Shelby. The Arthur Shelby can be worn complete like a few different ways, which is the best thing about the Arthur Shelby. So it's very, very high, disconnected, and then all straight back. You could have it the Peaky Blinder way, where you could have it using a pomade that was really, really high shine and very, very slick. That's going to give it the period of time in which it was done, which was like the 1930s. And it does look good. Brad Pitt did the very, very similar haircut, or exactly the same actually, in the film Fury, and it looks amazing. And I do really like it. And the best thing about it is it's the easiest haircut in the entire world. It's just a very, very square layered hair. Well, it's not even layered. It's just a very, very square cut top and then shaved very, very high disconnection. Now, if we're talking about Peaky Blinders, when it comes to Thomas Shelby, and a lot of people do come in and say, I want a Thomas Shelby. I always say to them, are you going to wear a suit like him? Are you going to ride a white horse like him? And they say, no, I'm going out in my tracksuit. I'm going to go to the gym. And I say, well, you're just going to look like you've got a bad haircut. You're going to look like a complete knobhead. Unless you are Thomas Shelby, unless you're wearing the suits like him, unless you're actually going to a fancy dress party dressed like him, then I would not have it, because it's not the most practical haircut in the world. It looks good on him because he wears it so well. But in actual fact, it's not a great haircut. It's just a very, very typical short back and sides from the 1930s.
He's also got a great face. I do.
Oh, it's a great face.
It's Cillian Murphy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, Murphy.
Like these people have got a team around them. It's not like he's not actually that guy in that time. They have makeup artists. They have a hairstylist that steps in on every single scene and will sort that hair. So these guys, they're very lucky. Go for it.
I was going to say, I think no matter what gender you are or who you are or what age, people are just infatuated with Thomas Shelby. And if you're infatuated with somebody and their charisma and their character and their personality and the way that they are, then if he's got a pretty cool haircut, it kind of amplifies it, just because he's one cool guy and he's got a beautiful face.
Yeah, he's got the attitude. I think in style, be that your hairstyle or your personal sort of fashion style, I do think it is all about that way that you pull that off. You know, some of these, like you see someone like Harry Styles, it looks like he's wearing his grandma's sort of curtains, but when you've got that sort of vibe, you can wear absolutely anything.
And make it look good.
Absolutely. Thank you for all the love that's now coming in. That wasn't me trying to get some compliments, but thank you. But thanks anyway. Very much appreciated. I have got a question here from Daniel Sanchez. Daniel is asking about a cowlick. Again, cowlick, widow's peak, lots of things that I get asked. Daniel's saying, not really a barber question. I think it could be. But why, whenever I grow my hair out, does my cowlick get wider in my crown area and my hair looks thinner?
So, in the crown area, you've got two possible places where you could have a cowlick or a calf lick, and your crown. So your crown is the point of origin. So that's on the back of your head. That's where your point of origin is, where your hair starts. And that obviously is in like a swirl. Now, what can happen, obviously, in the womb is your kind of body can become a little bit confused and it can start another one. Now, what it tends to do is it tends to kind of come to surface in like a thinner part of the skull. So where the skull meets the skin of the forehead, that's where it tends to come out, obviously right at the front of your fringe. And the best way you should never ever fight a cowlick. Never. You should always work with it. So if you've got a very, very particular growth pattern at the front of the head, you should never kind of cut it too short. So if you was to cut it too short, what you're doing there is you're taking away control. The longer your hair is, the more control you've got over it. It's a lot stronger when it's closer to the head. So when it's shorter, the growth pattern is so strong that it's hard to manipulate and hard to have control over. When it's longer, it kind of loses a lot of integrity and loses that strength, and you can have more control over it. So if anyone's got a calf lick at the front of the head in the fringe and they're worried about it, the best thing you can do is grow it out so you have more control over it.
Okay, so work with it. Work with it.
Work with it, never against it.
Never against it. Okay. I have a double crown, and it can be a bit of a mission.
A double crown is something that, like a crown, no matter what, like I've seen 2 crowns, I've seen 3 crowns. And one of the best things you can do is, again, just try and leave it so then it's lying in its most natural position. And the way that you can do that is by getting the hairdryer on the back of your head. If you need to use 2 mirrors and put another one on top so you can see in front and then directly above on that bird's eye view of your head. And if you use a cold setting and a very, very slow strength of airflow and just blow directly into that very, very central point, your hair will naturally find its most natural position. And once it's in that position, all we have to do is just style it and hold it flat then.
Okay. There is a question here which is actually quite fun. That comes from a toast. A toast to what? But a toast saying, what's the most fun or satisfying hairstyle to cut? A toast, cheers, yeah. I'm going to be moving on to the wine soon, I think.
Okay, so the most fun and satisfying is definitely like a full transformation. So somebody who's grown their hair out like over time. So it's all one length and they've got this like mosher rocker thing going on. And they want something completely restyled and smart and current, layered, maybe like a shorter taper or a graduation around the sides. Something that you know full well that the client is going to be ultra satisfied with. One of the best things I loved about when we did Rory's hair at your place was his reaction when he finally looked at his hair and he said the words, "I never knew my hair could do that." Because he was using the wrong product, he was using the wrong shampoo, he was styling his hair in the wrong direction. He had no experience in styling his hair, and he had no kind of like intelligence as to what his hair was doing and how to manipulate it and move it into what was going to be best suited for him. And those words, "I never knew my hair could do that," that's when you know you've done right.
His hair looked amazing. Again, Alan, I've just pulled it up onto the screen. Rory had quite a lot of hair that was a bit of a mess to start with, but Alan has done this amazing hairstyle, and it was the huge smile that he had that I thought was really amazing. So it was a bit of a transformation. If you guys want to check that out, I'll make sure I've linked this into the description afterwards, but Alan's video tutorial is there. You can actually see the before and after, so it's a bit of a mess there. And then he's got this gorgeous thick red hair into this quiff, which just looks absolutely amazing. Alan, how are you doing for time?
I'm good.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep your questions coming. There are more coming in here. We have got a question from Dream Infinity 808. Dream Infinity is asking, how do you cut your hair in a traditional undercut with a 0 on the side/back without it looking like a bowl cut? So this is about cutting your own hair into an undercut without it looking like a bowl cut. Is that possible, Alan?
So effectively the haircut is an undercut. So it just depends on how high you want to go. Now, if you was to cut it, let's say midway, then it's going to look like a terrible haircut. It's going to look like you've done it at home or your mum's done it in your kitchen. Now, if you take it to a certain point where, like, let's say up towards your parietal ridge, which is literally the point in which your head sticks out the most, we take it just above that. That's going to create not an undercut, but a disconnection. Now, if you've not styled your hair, then it's going to look like an undercut because you'll see the hair literally going over and overlapping, and you're going to see the bald underneath. So it's not a haircut that you can do and just walk the streets and go out and do everything unstyled. It's a haircut that warrants being styled. That's when it will look like a disconnection rather than an undercut.
And it has to be done to be styled. If you're gonna, 'cause I had all those sort of fades and the undercuts for so long, and when you wake up in the morning or you don't style it, it looks a mess. So it is
Yeah.
sort of all in the styling. Have you ever seen anyone actually do a bowl cut? Like, is that something that you would say to stay clear of? Like, actually, if it was an undercut, then why not?
So let's say about 6, 7 years ago, the only way is Essex was a big thing, Towie, and it was big. I mean, when it first started, I watched it. I actually went down and met a few of the guys like a long, long time ago, and Joey Essex started this haircut, which was practically a bowl cut, and it was quite a low, very, very strong disconnection that was practically just a bowl, but he called it a fusey, and we did a few in the shop, and it's just the same as anything. As soon as a trend comes, you've kind of got to keep up with it, or keep up with what kids want. And a lot of the younger kids were coming in and asking for it. Have you seen The Only Way Is Essex? Yes. You know Joey Essex? Yes. You know what's coming. You're gonna have to go against everything that you've ever stood for and do this shocking haircut.
Yeah.
And try and make it look good. And it looks good once it was styled, and especially if the kids had wavy hair, it looked great. If they had straight hair, then it just looked terrible. But you had to style it. You couldn't just leave it. It had to look intentional, is what I'm trying to get out.
That leads to a question from me. I hope it's okay. I ask a question. But what's the sort of the worst hair trend that you've seen in sort of recent years?
It was the fusey.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the worst one. And we got to the point where we've got a reputation to uphold as well. And you know what? We don't want people going up to some lads in the street asking where they got their haircut. It's like tattoo artists are very particular about what tattoos they do. If you went in with a picture of George Clooney from the film From Dusk Till Dawn, and he's got tribal up his neck, all down one arm and across his chest, you know, that was very, very fashionable, you know, in the late 80s, early 90s. And a lot of these like very, very artistic tattoo artists now, they wouldn't do anything like that because they're doing something that's a lot more intricate and a lot more detailed. You know, we have to look after our brand and say, unfortunately, we will not do that. Like it's not on brand. It's against kind of what we stand for, and it doesn't look fucking good, so you can't have it in this shop.
Sorry for Alan swearing there.
Sorry about that. Pardon my French. Bleep that out.
I'll get demonetized. We'll leave that out of the live, Alan. Don't you worry. This is a product question, and this comes from Jeffrey Weaver. And Jeffrey asks, what is your favorite pre-styler to use? Do you have any favorites? Are you a sea salt guy? Are you a thickening?
I'm definitely a sea salt guy.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Because it's one of those where it can be reworked and redone. I mean, the first thing I do straight out of the shower is sea salt spray, blow dry, take all the moisture out of my hair, lift my fringe up, square it off, just make sure it's nice and neat, and that's done. I've pre-styled, it's give it a little bit of hold, and then I can go about my day. And then when I finally get time, I'll put a little bit of product in, a little bit of essential, maybe a little bit of powder, or even just a tiny little bit of hairspray, just to kind of lock it in.
Yeah, I do like sea salt sprays, but I find especially with my hair being so fine that I need to sort of mix them. I pulled out some of my sort of favorite products. This is a product I always use. Do you use any sort of like tonics or primers, Alan? This is the Bumble and Bumble one.
I use a tonic, a Fresh Heads hair tonic in my water spray in the shop, and that's about it really.
Yeah. I just really like this in order to kind of set it to then go in and do any sort of blow drying, and then I'll put in a little bit of sea salt spray just to kind of mix it in. But yeah, I just sometimes find that you have to have a really good quality sea salt spray, otherwise it's going to dry it out.
Definitely. I think the best thing for people to do if they want to have a little go kind of like through some products is try and get some samples, try and get some smaller, just some smaller bottles or smaller tubs of the products that they want to try. or again, just kind of doing some homework and practicing, because everyone's hair is completely different and totally reacts differently to each product. And you've just kind of got to work your way through them all and see what works best for you.
Yeah,
One of the most one of the most underrated products in the entire world is a mousse, a hair mousse. I think they're great. You can leave it in and let it dry naturally, and then it will go a little bit crunchy. But obviously, all you need to do then is just kind of break that out, and you will have that hold and that volume, and it's great for blow drying.
I
It's
love mousses. I was
yeah,
such a
I
mousse guy when I started out on this. I was like this huge. I basically was just a quiff. But I like the Tony and Guy one is great. The have you used American Crew
yeah,
Fiber? Yeah,
the fiber boost, yeah, amazing,
True place.
incredible product.
Yeah, this is a really good product. It's a fiber, so it's got strings in it, but this just gives such great volume. I actually think it's one of the best ones from American Crew. I just think it gives you that fantastic volume.
They
Um,
al- they also do a styling product called Fiber, which was the first one, and that's one of my best styling products I've ever used in my life.
yeah, they've got some real classics, and that one is amazing. They have another one from I think it's the Techni series, and it smells like a chocolate orange. It's a silver sort of can, but it works quite similar to that. But the volume you get from it is absolutely huge. Um, I have another super chat question from Dream Infinity 808. You were asking, this is about sort of healthy hair. So best products to repair hair and keep it healthy after bleaching your hair platinum blonde, and best volumizing shampoo for dyed and undyed hair. Okay, so this sounds like hair that needs some help. What would you recommend, Alan?
Okay, so the best thing you can do, no matter what product you use, unless you're using products with like enzymes and proteins, things like Olaplex, then you're never going to actually repair the bonds that have been broken. Unfortunately, when you start to process hair, you've already started breaking down the keratin, you're breaking down the bonds, and unfortunately, the only way in which you're going to get that healthy hair again is by allowing it to grow out and taking away that practically dead hair. But Olaplex do a few different products that help with kind of rebonding hair and repairing hair. Masks are also extremely good because bleach, peroxide,
Mm-hmm.
those kind of products, what they do is they don't just open the cuticle, they tear it off,
Yeah.
and it's constantly open, which means that you need to constantly replenish the oils in the hair. So by using different oils, by using hair masks and things like that, the ultimate repair masks are really, really good for just bringing back some vitalization into the hair.
When I went through my blonde phase, age 19, which was quite a time, I looked like a rent boy, so I really wouldn't recommend it. But I my hair was so dry and it was crispy and it just didn't look great. And I would get it sort of bleached like quite often. I never had a dark root, but something that I used a lot of, and it was just a cheap sort of super drug, was a coconut conditioner, and it just
Yeah.
really helped to smooth the hair out and actually get some of that moisture back into it. 'Cause you don't need to spend a lot of money on products, do you, Alan? There's some
Um,
stuff that works so well.
It's like if you look at a domestic product or a commercial one that you'd get from a supermarket and then one that you'd find in a salon, what it tends to be the expense is obviously one is the ingredients, and we tend to use ingredients that are quite a lot more expensive. The packaging and the development and everything that goes and the marketing, everything that goes into play with making sure that this product is amazing. And a lot of the supermarket products are bad quality, but what they do is they work on obviously massive volumes, so they get packaging, they get ingredients a lot cheaper than what we would do. Now, that's not to say that some of them aren't fantastic. Some of the products that you can get from supermarkets, Superdrug, what have you, are really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they are cheaper, then it means you've got a bit more sort of money to try these things. I think what
Yeah,
you said earlier, Alan, about sort of getting those smaller sizes of products and having a go of something, or if you're a guy who likes to experiment with products and maybe some of your mates have got it, it's not really something that guys sort of talk about, but if someone's got a product that you want to lend to them to try before you buy, then I think that's kind of the best idea. I'm conscious of time. We are almost at an hour, so I'm gonna take like maybe one question, and then I've got a question that I want to ask you before we finish. I
Okay.
made that sound like it's a really tricky question, but it's not at all. We've got someone's asking for your Instagram ID. It is Alan_Beak, and again, it's already in the description, so you can press down on there and check him out. He has got lots of hair in sports. Chris Beza is saying, "Bro, Fiber by American Crew sucked." Chris,
Oh, it's just you
no,
then.
absolutely not. Here we go. We've got a question from Robert Steam. Absolutely amazing name. Robert saying, how many times, I can't read now, how many times do you shampoo and condition your hair? Any advice for post-workout sweaty hair?
I mean, men are full of testosterone, and testosterone makes us produce a lot of oils from our skin and our scalp. Now, if you are trying to blow dry hair that's really, really oily, all you're doing is moving that oil all the way along the hair and distributing it amongst all the other hairs. So what we want to do is we want to cleanse all of that oil out. We can get more manipulation when the hair is oil free. I wash my hair every single day. In fact, I wash my hair every shower, which means that I wash my hair in the morning when I get up and after I've trained. And then when I go to work, I come home, I'm full of hair, but a long day, and I wash my hair again. And there's so many different like old wives' tales. Oh, you know, if you don't wash your hair for 3 weeks, it starts to clean itself. It's bollocks. Your hair doesn't clean itself. It's not magical hair. You're not Rapunzel. You know, your hair needs cleaning if you want to create certain looks, if you want to create certain thickness. Wash your hair daily is my advice. If you wanted to create something that was thicker, just make sure that you kind of do some research into what your hair is. Notice, is your hair thick? Is it full? Is it greasy? Is it dry? If you don't have dry hair, then you don't need to use conditioner. If you've got greasy hair, you would not use a nourishing shampoo because there's already oil in there. So you don't want to add oil to oil. So just kind of think of and be wary of what your hair type is, what your scalp's like, what your oil production is like, and then what shampoo you're using.
Also on that, some shampoos can tend to really strip the hair. So I know in the past I've said wash your hair this amount of times or do this, but as Alan says, it does come down to your own personal sort of hair. Also the products you use, if you're using oil-based products, which I tend to stay away from, then it's going to feel like it's clogging the hair and it's going to sort of coat the scalp and you're going to have this sort of feel. But if you can use a water-based product that can kind of just come out with water and then shampooing, and I am a conditioner, I should say, because I think it's where it adds that treatment in, but just knowing your own hair type. And that's when, Alan, I would say, you know, someone would be best to ask their barber, wouldn't they, when they go in and see them and say, what does my hair need? Does it feel dry? Does it feel like it needs a bit of something, or should I lay off the shampoo and conditioner?
Going and having your hair cut now is one of the most metrosexual things you can do, and men are so metro now. They are, and we're not in a day and age where you can't go into your own barbershop, sit down and say, what's my hair type? You know, what's my scalp like? What kind of shampoo should I be using? If you want to maximize and get the most potential from your hair, have a conversation with the professional that's doing your hair. It's dead simple. And if they don't know anything about your hair and don't know anything, then you need to change your barber.
Stop going to them. Yeah, if they don't know these things. I remember when I was like literally about 10 or 11, the little barber shop I would go to and we'd pay £3 for a haircut. Amazing. The guy used to keep on saying to me, stop using your mum's shampoo and conditioner, because I used to wash my hair so much, and because my hair is so fine and flyaway, actually loading it with conditioner was just making it even worse.
Yeah.
Right, Alan, I want to ask you one very quick question. So obviously at the moment we are in this period of lockdown. I know that you'll be very excited to get back into your barbershop, Ruger, in Manchester. What do you think the main hair trends will be after this? Because obviously there's going to be some guys who have shaved and blitzed their hair and maybe made a bit of a mess, whereas other guys like myself are going to have all this thick and full hair. Can you sort of see any emerging trends that we might have?
So I've got two answers. Okay, the answer that I want and the answer that I know will happen. So the answer I want is, I want people to think, do you know what? I'm enjoying the length. I'm going to have everything tidied, all my neck hairs, my beard trimmed. I'm gonna have everything tidied and nice and neat and looking extremely intentional. And I'm gonna go with the length. I'm gonna start styling the side. I'm gonna blow it a completely different way, and I'm gonna start styling my hair. That's what I want to happen. But what will actually happen, what I forecast will be the truth, is everyone's going to come in and have skin fade and clippers really, really short, and everyone's going to go back to having really, really short hair. I can guarantee it.
Yeah. I hope not, because I would say if you are thinking about sort of growing your hair at the moment, go with it. I'm actually really enjoying this. I mean, this is a bit of a mess at the moment. And now that I've fully clean shaved, I look like a child with sort of long hair, but I'm going to go with it for now. Alan, thank you so much. You've
No, you're
been
more
an
than welcome.
absolute star. That is a lot of your time on a Saturday. That's 1 hour and 5 minutes. As I say, Alan's Instagram is linked down below. Go across, say hello, ask him all your questions. I'm going to get onto Alan's back and see if we can get some more in the men's hairstyle directory with the hairstyles that you've done. Also, this will be up, so if you're watching again, then you've missed out. You need to make sure those notifications are on. It just means it's going to pop up as soon as these videos go live.